Hi, and welcome back to our draft recap. And just think, Chris Spielman, it's only 360 days to the draft 2021. Can you wait?
Yeah, I can wait. I actually need to recover a little bit, but I really had a lot of fun being on the draft coverage for the Lions and being part of all their digital platforms and actually tweeting just on the Lions draft. I think it was a lot of fun, and it was great interacting with the fans of Detroit and a remembrance of the passion that they have and how bad they want to win.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Chris Spielman, we're going to do the draft recap show again here. It's Chris Spielman, the all-time great Detroit Lions linebacker. I'm Michael here. I've just been around a while. That's why I'm sitting here. And once again, we're brought to you by the Southeast Ford dealers, the good people there. And Chris, let's just take the broad view of this. This was a draft unlike any other. And to me, it looks special. You saw executives here in Detroit, Bob Quinn, the general manager of the Detroit Lions, exchanging a high five and a fist bump and all of that. Should they do, first of all, what did you think of the whole thing? And what sort of lessons did you think the National Football League either learned or displayed and demonstrated in what was a very, very difficult process that looked smooth?
I thought it was a phenomenal job. Not only that, the monies raised for COVID relief by the National Football League was an amazing gesture. And I don't think it could have went better for the NFL. I thought our coverage with the Lions, with you and Tori and many others that participated, did a great job for covering for the Lions and all their digital platforms. So, it doesn't surprise me, though, because the ingenuity of our country and the ingenuity of the people in our country, if a problem comes, we don't go hide. We figure out how to find a solution to the problem. And so kudos to ESPN, the NFL Network. I thought Trey Wingo was outstanding. And all the guys were great. And the production, all the behind-the-scenes stuff, guys like Derek on our end, who've done a great job all week. It's just been it couldn't have gone better. And so the coverage was special. The ratings were through the roof, and everybody made a lot of money when that's hard to do right now.
We're going to look at the draft a little bit. Your overall view of the Detroit Lions, do you think they hit it where they needed to? Do you think, obviously, there's some gaps? I've said this to people all along. There are 13 individual positions on a football team, not counting the kicker, the punter, and the holder.
Yeah.
So you're not going to cover all of them in a draft, and you're not going to satisfy everybody. You're going to get critics who say, come on, why didn't you trade down? Well, the Detroit Lions' last 6 draft picks were all a result of trades.
Yeah.
But if they don't do it in the first round for some reason, I think you've been pretty vocal about that. But just the broad view of the draft, what did you think of it?
Well, I thought on paper, which is the only way we can judge drafts, right? I thought it's tremendous. I think the guard position was addressed, which we know that's a question mark coming into the season. You needed a corner. That was addressed with clearly by consensus. It's not even close. The best corner that was available in Jeff Okudah. That's experts talking. That's just not my opinion, Mike. And I think when you look
at don't be so modest. You're an expert. That's why we hired you.
I think I think I understand a good player when I see one,
sure.
And I think they got some good players. But people forget that there was a draft last year, and some guys were injured. So it's like you're accumulating extra young guys that could be major contributors. And I think some people get so caught up in the here and now, they forget about the last years and the natural growth that players will have from year 1 to year 2. And the other thing is, and this is important, I mean, they draft with a mindset to win now. They have to win now. Everybody knows that. Matt and Bob both made that clear at the end of the year that they understand what the stakes are. And so I thought they drafted accordingly. And I think a good pickup, the more I think about it, the more I like it, is DeAndre Swift in the 2nd round. You can't have enough running backs because of Kerryon Johnson. First of all, his injury history, plus teams now go 1A, 1B type running back. And so if you can get the production from DeAndre that is expected, that's going to be a big hit. So it's important, and I think they did a lot of good things and got a lot of good players and created some competition in that offensive line room. On paper, it's great, but you know what? We never know until we actually see guys and how they perform under the lights. That's just the nature of the beast.
Now, I don't know if you agree with this or not, probably not, but I've always said this in the last 15, 20 years. The more I cover the league and the more I watch it, I always said, okay, they were draft picks, but starting today, they're not draft picks anymore. They're football players. Just like me showing up for work my first day at the Detroit News. The next day, no, I wasn't the new guy. I was an employee. I was being counted on to do my job. And I think it's the same way to a large degree that you guys are football players now. This is your job. says professional football player. That's what you
Right.
do for a living, and you'll be judged by that from now on, not as a draft.
Well, plus they have the disadvantage too, and it's kind of like back when I played, where there was no such thing as OTAs, right? I mean, I remember my brother and my Rick was a free agent my rookie year, but we came up to Detroit early to be around it and work out with some of the guys that were in town, but the majority of the team was out of town. Remember that? There's only maybe 10 or 12 of us in town, but I wanted to be around it. I wanted to meet with Mike Murphy, the linebacker coach at the time. I wanted to meet with Wayne Fonts, the defensive coordinator at the time. And, we lived in a dorm room together at Oakland University. It was like we were kids again, sharing the same bedroom as a kid that we shared in our bungalow in Canton, Ohio. So, I mean, I think but we don't have that luxury of modern day football now with guys that are in OTAs and are around everybody, the whole team. For coaches to actually see these guys work physically, to be around them, to develop relationships. So it's going to be an important job on Matt Patricia's and his staff to get these guys as soon as training camp opens up and getting them going and teaching them as quick as possible. And it's incumbent upon these young players that want to contribute to be able to pick up the system. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're not playing. You know as well as I do, Mike, you can't play if you make mental errors, because mental errors equal big mistakes and touchdowns.
Nothing worse than a guy turning around looking at the quarterback with his hands outstretched and say, what was I supposed to do? No, you're supposed to figure that out before the snap, not after.
It's your job. You're right.
Yeah, Chris Spielman, let's just sort of look at not just 1 through 7, but sort of the offense and the defense. And we'll just start like Jeff Okudah, 3rd pick overall. He's going to be a starting cornerback. But when you get further down in there, we've talked about Julian Okwara. Is he a defensive end? Is he an edge rusher? We'll find out.
He's a situational pass rusher on the edge. That's what he is his first year. That's what he is.
And you get down to deeper into the draft now. There was a guy, John Peniche, out of Utah. I look at him, 6'1", 315 pounds, whatever it is, and I say, well, look, the guy played 2 years. He's got 4 sacks. Who are we kidding? Now, I heard what you say about him, too, and it's completely different than my initial thought. What do you think about John Peniche?
And that's a guy that can give you, maybe 20 to 25 good, solid plays. That's what you want. You want him to eat double teams, keep linebackers free, and by the way, don't get driven off the ball, and if somebody runs through your gap, tackle the guy. That's what you draft a guy for. You don't draft that guy to create a pass rush. Everybody has a role. And besides, Mike, you know this, and our smart fans understand this. Today, any type of sub packages involving passing situations or passing downs, depending what the analytics tell you, we don't have defensive tackles on the field unless your name is Aaron Donald. You have 4 defensive ends on the field, and you have your bigger guys with that athletic ability and speed. They kick down inside. So you're creating 4 pass rushers, not 2 outside guys and 2 big hogs pushing the middle. Those days are done. It's sub packages with 4 defensive ends or 4 outside linebackers, whatever your system is, on the field at once in those passing down situations.
Well, that's why a guy like you played with, Robert Porsche, why he was so good. He has the franchise record for sacks. Now, back in your era, or epic, or millennium, or whatever you want to call it, because it was so long ago, but Robert Porsche started out as a tackle and moved to end, but then moved inside on passing situations. Yeah. And he would just split the seam, and he was on the quarterback.
Yeah. Well, that's interior pass. That's why Robert was superior athletically to those guys. And he was one of those bigger defensive ends that had the strength and size to go inside. So that's what you want to do. You want to put those guys inside to create the mismatch on your worst pass protectors. And centers and guards are your worst pass protectors. They get paid to be maulers and fight. The offensive tackles are your finesse guys. They're not devastating run blockers, but athletically, they get paid to protect the quarterback.
When you hear like Logan Stenford, he was asked on his conference call after he was drafted here in Detroit, what kind of style of a player are the Detroit Lions getting? And he said, I'm nasty. Now, what does that mean to you? But aren't you playing against guys who are nasty, who have mortgages and are used to making money and they want to hang on to it?
It says to me everybody is, at least every offensive lineman that I play with, because they're fighting for their job. And I don't know if there's anybody any nastier than Ken Dallafor. His term wasn't nasty. His term was, Chris, I got to win ugly. So he did what he had to do to get his blocks. And guess what? Most guys are like that. But I think when you look at Logan, He does finish blocks, and he had some penalty issues, and those things he does have to clean up because penalties are killers in the NFL, just self-induced penalties. But you like that attitude. He just has to learn to walk that fine line of being nasty through the whistle, not beyond the whistle.
Well, a couple of guys I want to look at here before we close it out, and one of them is that little wide receiver, running back specialist, kick return specialist. He had 5 kickoff returns for touchdowns in back-to-back seasons, 2 1 year, 3 the next. And that would be Jason Huntley. Is he going to put pressure on somebody? Maybe the fourth back, maybe a return specialist who hasn't found a niche on the team. Isn't that part of what you're looking for?
Well, you don't draft him. He's not going to draft and be your starting running back or your starting wide receiver. So yeah, he's going to probably be their returner. And with Agnew having some injuries, and Agnew could develop into a really good nickel corner, in my opinion. That might give him some focus. Now, I don't know if you want to take Agnew off the punt return, but I do think when you have a little specialist like that, or you need a guy that's on third downs, that's a nice luxury to have. And that was a luxury pick. And I think, again, a good pick. But you have to address those concerns. And anytime you can have anybody that can change the game on special teams, and that's explosive, you try to add that.
I'm going to move on to a 5th round pick, and I had to get straightened away on this one myself because I made a big mistake here. But Quintez Cephas of Wisconsin, wide receiver, ran a 4.73 seconds in the 40-yard dash. You look at it and said, why are they drafting him? But on his pro day, and Bob Quinn mentioned this, said he improved it on his pro day to 4.62, which is still not lightning fast. But what do you make of a wide receiver, 6'1", 202 or whatever he weighs? What do you make of him as a prospect in this modern era of football? I've got something to add to it when you're done.
I love him. I think he's a really good player.
Even at that speed.
Well, listen to me now.
Okay.
You talk to Jeff Okudah, right? Ask Jeff Okudah who was his most difficult matchup. We're talking about the best corner in college football. Who was his most difficult matchup? And without hesitation, he said Cephas out of Wisconsin. I don't know if you had a chance to watch him play, Mike. I did. He does drop the ball a little bit, but I'll tell you, man, you know who he is? He reminds me now. I'm not saying he's this guy. You're going to
say Anquan Bolden?
Yes. But,
so am I.
But he's bigger. And so here's what I think. I think his ceiling, absolute ceiling, is he's never a number 1. He'll be a number 2. He can be a number 3. He can line up inside. He's tough as nails. He's a great blocker. Now, people say, I don't want my wide receivers to block. Well, if you say that, then you disagree with Hall of Fame coach Marv Levy, who started out every meeting about if our wide receivers block downfield, receivers blocking downfield equals big plays equal touchdowns, and touchdowns equals wins. That was the start of every meeting. So that's important to me when I'm evaluating a receiver. It's not the number 1 thing, but it's important. We have guys that can get down the field. Kenny Golladay can get down the field. Marvin Jones Jr. can get down the field. This guy is as tough as nails, and if he's not a contributor because of his size and athletic ability and toughness, he can be a major contributor on your punt cover team, on your kickoff team, on your kickoff return team. And I want to tell you, he's going to work, and when you watch the guy play, people of Detroit, the personality of the fan of Detroit will love this guy. And Bob is absolutely right. I did, after everybody was tweeting at me, he ran 4.73, I did a little bit calling around. He had the luxury of having that pro day and improving on that 40 time. So it doesn't really matter in a sense to what the combine time was. It matters to what Bob Quinn and his staff had as 40 time, because those guys, Bob and those guys, just like Rick Spielman and his guys, they trust their times because it's their guy more than they trust, say, the combine time. And most guys do improve on a pro day. And I don't have a problem with it because I've watched the guy play. And when I hear the best corner in the country tell me that this guy was his toughest cover all year, that's a good sign. And I saw Danny O also really liked the pick of Quintez Cephas.
That would be Danny Orlowski. Well, one thing about Quintez Cephas and Anquan Bolden, in 2003, Anquan Bolden was timed in 4.73 seconds. He went on to play 14 years in the National Football League, caught more than 1,000 passes. And in 2016, at the age of 36, he caught 67 passes for the Detroit Lions. So speed isn't everything. I'll tell you one other thing too. I talked to one of the scouts here when you were drafted. I think it was Ron Hughes, might have been Joe Bashowski, and he said something about your 40 time. He said, "Yeah, well, forget that. He had the same short shuttle time as Benny Blades, who was a 200-meter junior Olympic sprint champion."
That actually saved
I don't know why I remember that, okay, but I do.
Well, no, I mean, I refer to that all the time, and I was, and I don't say this lightly because not everybody does. Look, there's some guys that are 4.3 that don't play at a 4.3; they play at a 4.6. There's some guys that are 4.6s that play at 4.3s. You know, I was a 4.9 guy that played at a 4.6 guy for a linebacker because I didn't have wasted steps and I had a pretty good start and stop stuff. You know, that's how I got by, Mike. Let's be honest. But when you look at Cephas, and you've covered a lot of, Cephas is one of those guys that plays faster than he is, just like Anquan. Somebody asked me on Twitter what Chris Carter's 40 time was. Now, Chris wasn't known as a burner. And I said, I think his 40 time was ... I catch touchdowns. That was Or my kids one time asked, what was your 40 time? I said, I made tackles. There you go.
Well, I think also I look at Pro Football Reference, they list you as 13th all-time in career tackles in the National Football League. So it's a lot of tackles. Hey, Chris Spielman, before we wrap it up here, we look ahead to 2020 season now. They say 2020 vision is hindsight. Well, this is foresight. We're going to look at it's a different year, and let's just assume the football is going to start on time, the National Football League, the second Sunday or whatever it is in September. What do you foresee for the Detroit Lions?
Well, I'm optimistic, but I'm optimistic every year. I didn't foresee the injuries. That's the thing. Look, like I said, they're in good shape, just like everybody else in the NFC North. Everybody, that's the beautiful thing about the NFL. You can turn it around quickly. And like, I'll say this about any team. If they can stay healthy, Mike, their roster's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good. Not only that, consider some people were complaining about, well, they didn't address enough defensive needs. Well, they addressed it, I thought, pretty decently in free agency in the offseason, picking up a corner, picking up a safety, picking up a defensive lineman, picking up a linebacker and Jamie Collins, Danny Shelton, right? I mean, these are guys that they picked up and guys that understand what Matt Patricia wants to do on the defensive side of the ball. So it's a big year. It's a really big year for everybody involved. It's a big year for Bob Quinn. I mean, I don't think that's a secret, is it? It's a big year for Matt. I don't think that's a secret. And another guy on defense who I think was really coming along until he hurt his ankle is Jared Davis. And if Jared can get it going too, that's only going to help. So if he's healthy, everything is pointing the right way. But we don't know until we cross the lines, then we find out, just like every year.
Well, Chris Spielman, I hope we talk again before then. But if we don't, we'll see you on 3 and Out.
Why wouldn't we?
That's when we have text. We don't have to answer it unless we want to. Anyway, Chris.
Yeah, but you and I talk on the phone a lot. We
do.
Yeah, so. But it was great.
I wouldn't say talk. You talk. I listen.
So, hey,
take notes.
Real quick, Mike. Thanks to Ben and Tori and to you and to Derek and anybody behind the scenes that made this weekend possible. And it was a great experience. I tell you. I mean, I've been wearing my Lions stuff all week, and I just, my kids, I got to wear it before I know tonight I'll see this as somebody's nightgown tonight before bed, before they confiscate it. But it's been fun for me to be part of the team and be back with the Lions organization in this capacity. And thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Well, Chris, thanks for doing it. We'll see you all again. Thanks for being with us, and we'll keep in mind the 2021 draft is just 360 days away. We'll have it for you again, just like this.